Hi, Assassins. I'm Brooke.
And I'm Cami.
Welcome to Bookish Realms.
We're just two girls who can't stop talking about fantasy books.
Welcome to a very special episode of Bookish Realms. Today, we're doing something a little outside of our format. We're sharing our predictions for Onyx Storm.
We're bringing you our signet predictions and some wild theories for what's about to go down in this next installment of the Empyrean series. But there's a twist for us, too. We haven't shared any of our predictions with each other yet.
Get ready for theories that might be brilliant or unhinged, and maybe a little friendly debate. We can't wait to hear if you agree with us or if you got your own theories to share after this. So let's get into it.
Okay, let's start with signet theories. And I don't know, I'm so nervous to do this. I feel like this is just so outside of like the world that we've been living in. And I will say, like, I can't speak for Brooke, but like all of my things for this episode are definitely more like based on vibes and not so much like I don't have evidence the way that I usually do. I have some evidence, but like I'm definitely like a vibe person right now. Okay. All of my signet theories are based on two things that Rebecca Yarrow said. The first one is that she said that there's one line in Iron Flame that gives it away. Have you heard of this? I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
Okay. And the second one is that she said at some point that like Violet's second signet isn't like some groundbreaking thing. Like it's not going to shock us the way that like Xaden being intrinsic would shock us. It's like more just like a normal signet type of situation. So my first signet prediction is that she has speed or gravity manipulation. And that's based off of one conversation that Violet and Bodhi are having. This is in Iron Flame after obviously they found out everything about the venom and stuff. And they're practicing rolling dismounts, like getting off your dragon. And Violet says to Bodhi that Kaori, like the instructor, must not know what's out there. And Bodhi's like, why do you say that? And she's like, if he did, he'd be teaching us how to get off the ground faster, not get on the ground. Which is why I think like her second signet could be something that's like speed or gravity manipulation. Because also we see her like starting to practice running and like I just feel like it would be very badass if she could lift everyone off the ground to like keep them from getting drained by the venom. Like again, I feel like that might fall into like a little more badass than maybe what Rebecca is thinking. But like I think it would make sense if it was that, because also one of like Violet's needs is to like protect the people she loves, which I feel like that ties right into like, okay, if I can control gravity to some extent, I can like lift everyone off, even if it's just for like a second or two, while the venom are like sucking the source or whatever, and save the people that I love. So that's my first signet theory.
Okay. I could see that though. Like I could definitely see that. Also because when we were doing our like recap of Iron Flame, they were talking about how Feathertails can transfer their power to the human, and then that's how they get drained of that power. So I could definitely see that like Andarna maybe gave her that and it like stuck, you know?
Yeah.
That's a good one. So I've been thinking a lot about what Violet's signet could be. And one idea that really stands out is that she might be some kind of truthsayer or holder of knowledge, which I know this is something that has been like talked about a lot on TikTok, but she's always trying to uncover what's really going on. And there are multiple moments in the series where she talks about like opening up the archives in her mind. And it makes me kind of wonder, like, what if she's like essentially a walking, talking archives herself, and her power could be tied to storing or accessing information almost like a living library, which I think is also interesting because she was originally going to be a scribe. So I just wonder if she like up there, she's just got lots of knowledge, you know?
I like that. Like, yeah. She's like a walking, talking encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. My second one is kind of tied into that, but not so much like she's a walking, talking encyclopedia, but it's really based off of the concept of the, like room of requirement in Harry Potter, which like, I feel like this pod sometimes makes me seem like I'm a really big Harry Potter fan. I'm really not. I'm just like, did read the books and have seen the movies, but the room of requirement basically works like if you need something and you like think about it hard enough, the room can give you what you require. And I feel like in Iron Flame, there's a lot of conversations, even when she like figures out that Xaden must be intrinsic, it's because she's like, what does he need more than anything? He needs to know like who he can trust. So I was like, okay, what does Violet need more than anything? And I feel like she needs so many different things. So I'm like, okay, then maybe her signet is just that she can kind of get whatever it is that she needs like quickly, or like she can access things quickly. And so I feel like that can morph into like a few different things, but it's basically just like based off of the fact that there are so many times in Iron Flame and even Fourth Wing where it seems like she gets what she needs, even when it's like in a moment where she shouldn't. Like, you know, my main example in my head is like when they're in the like hidden archives room that's like underground and Arik has like pulled her in and they've been looking, they have like very limited amount of time to find the journals and they're looking and they can't find it. And then it like pops in her head that this is where it must be. And she like pulls back the blanket and like they're in this glass display case. Like that to me is like such an example of like, how did you know what I mean? Like, and I feel like it kind of like blurs a line because I think she is just like a really smart person anyway. But I'm like, a lot of these like little situations give room of requirement. Or when she gets Rhiannon to like pull her dagger through so that she doesn't get caught with it. Like that to me is giving, okay, I needed this in this moment and I made it happen.
I'm so glad that you said that because you know what's actually crazy is that kind of goes with the second signet theory that I have. But mine is taking it from like another angle because I do think that she has like this strong need in order to make sure that like the people that she loves, but like also herself to be safe, right? So what if that she can actually enhance other people's signets in order to get what she needs? Because there are those, like you just talked about the one with Rhiannon, but then there's also where Mira creates the wards on her own outside of the wards of Navarre on her own for the first time. And then Sloane, she also manifested her signet in the tunnel when they came across Bade when they were in danger. So I think that she could, like, when there's like an intense moment, there's a lot of emotions that happen because there's also multiple times where I think is it Carr? Is that the one that helps her in Orisha? I think Carr is not the one that helps her in Orisha. What's the one in Orisha that helps her? I forget what his name is.
The one that gives her the conduit.
Yeah.
I don't remember his name.
I don't remember his name either, but he keeps like saying that when they were practicing with the conduit for the first time, he always says like your power is driven by your emotion. And when she's feeling these high senses of like, I need help right now, we need to do this right now because it's a matter of life and death. I think she can help pull those emotions or pull those signets out of someone.
I like that. I feel like it's all of those.
But
combined. I also feel like it's going to be like something so not even lame, but like something just like kind of whatever.
Yeah.
But
I feel that based on like what Rebecca said, I feel like we're going to be like doing these crazy things and it's going to be something like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this last signet theory that I have is kind of a little unhinged and it's based off of like one part of Iron Flame. So what if Violet is like some source of untapped power all on her own? So I don't know exactly like what that would go into, but in Iron Flame, there's a line that got me thinking, quote, and this is again with the guy who gives her the conduit. I can't remember what the fuck his name is, but he says, quote, you wield pure power that takes the form of lightning because that's what you're most comfortable shaping it as, which I think is interesting because it's like, what do you mean that's what she's most comfortable as shaping it as? And like, what do you mean that she has this pure power line? So what if her magic is more than just lightning? And what if it's something bigger, something raw and undefined that she hasn't even begun to like really understand yet?
Can I tell you why I think she wields it as lightning, that she wields her raw power as lightning?
Why?
Do you remember what her mom's signet is?
Storms.
Her mom's signet is storms. And when Violet is on the parapet, like in Fourth Wing for the first time, she notes that like a storm comes out of nowhere. And I've seen this on TikTok too. Like I've always though thought that that's her mom bringing a storm for Violet because she knows it would like calm Violet down to be doing the parapet in a storm. So I feel like she wields lightning because she kind of wants to be like her mom.
Oh, that's actually so sweet. I never thought about it like that, but that is true though, because I think that fundamentally her mom like meant the best at heart, but it didn't always necessarily like come off as that.
Yeah. I've also seen, I saw this on TikTok, like literally 2 days ago, that another reason why her mom might have created the storm during the parapet is because she thought that Xaden might need to help Violet during the parapet, and having a storm would hide his shadows.
That makes sense. Because then he's also, I was just, when I was rereading some of Iron Flame, they were talking about how Xaden is the strongest at night because the shadows are already all around him. And there was also, there was another part to that quote that I just talked about where it said that she can make something out of nothing, whereas Xaden has to have the shadows, which I also think is interesting because that is true. Like the light, like she can wield lightning even when there is no storm. So that also kind of makes me think like maybe she has some crazy untapped power. And that could also be why the sage wants her so bad, because she herself could be a source of power that would help them continue to battle.
Yeah, because I think also her being a source of power is really interesting because like, and this is obviously like worst case situation, but like, let's say like the Venom win and they take over everything. At some point, the land has no more power left to give you. So you're going to need another source of power to continue doing your evil shit. So like it would make sense. Obviously that would mean that they're planning like very much in advance, but also it could be like they need so much power to do whatever it is that they want to do that the land literally like cannot give you that much power. So they're like limited by whatever power they can draw from the land. But if they can draw power from her, then maybe they can do more evil shit. Let's switch gears and do some of our general theories around the series and what we think we'll see in Onyx Storm. I feel like this is where we're going to enter like unhinged territory, at least for me. Like my first bullet point is crazy. My first unhinged theory is that in Onyx Storm, it will be revealed that Violet and Xaden are mates. How that happens, I don't know. I have no clue. Maybe it's connected to Sigale and Tarn. It also ties into another theory I have, so I'll wait on it. But I do think a lot of their like connections mirror mate tropes that we see in other fantasy series. So I just feel like it will be revealed. And I feel like when it's revealed, Xaden has known that they're mates. And Violet doesn't because of so many things that Xaden says, like, my life is tied to yours. Like, I'll find you in every lifetime, no matter what happens, like, blah, 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 all these things. I'm like, I think if they're mates, he knows or suspects. And she's just like, la-di-da.
I could definitely see that just based on, like you said, like the interactions that are between them. So I could see that. That would be actually such a twist because in any of the fantasy series I've ever read, there's never been like a mated human, like mated humans. So if that does take like, maybe they're mates, but it's called like something else in this world, you know? I think that would be really cool. Okay, my first theory. Okay, hold on here. Okay, just hear me out. What if Andarna is a combination of the traits from all 6 of the other dragons, which makes them uniquely suited together to kill the Venom? The journal translations are intriguing here because the first time that they translate Warwick's journal, it translates to the blood of the life of the 6 and the 1 combined and set the stone ablaze in an iron flame, which I just think it's interesting that it says like the 1 combined. Like, I don't know. That's where I got that from. But I'm also going to take this in a little bit of a different direction. I think that Andarna is also going to die. And here's why I think this, because the second time they retranslate it, it says the breath of the life of the 6 and the 1 combined set a stone ablaze in the iron flame. So the first time they translate it with blood. And then the second time it's with breath. And like, you need your blood and your breath to live, right? But I don't know, like something about it just feels significant, but also like her species supposedly died off 650 years ago. But what if they only hatch when the Venom are like on the rise, and they could be like nature's way of fighting back against this ancient threat, and they have to sacrifice themselves in order to keep the Venom at bay? And it would explain why they're so rare and why they only seem to appear like when the stakes are high, because we don't know why they were there 650 years ago. So I think Andarna's gonna die.
Okay, when you said that they're all combined, in my head I'm like, so is she suggesting like a dragon orgy type of situation to make more Andarnas? I literally was like, I'm very curious. I think that would be really funny, but then you really brought the mood down by saying Andarna was going to die.
But
I can't, because I think that's interesting that if she's like somehow all 7 of them combined, like the lineages all have combined somehow to make her. So
Mhm.
I think that's really interesting. I don't want Andarna to die though.
I don't either, but I think that she will. Like I think she's gonna have to sacrifice herself in order to save them
Yeah.
all, which would be unfortunate, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just to keep the Andarna train going, I will also do an Andarna one that I have. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of reveals in this book due to like it being the third book. And I think there have been a lot of hints to Andarna's existence being tied to like a prophecy of some sort. Even when Andarna
Mhm.
reveals like that she is the seventh type of dragon, she's like, I waited 650 years to hatch, which like we learned that it's because like dragons can hear things through the shells. But I just think there's too many things that seem very similar to what happened with the Venin and the first six, like X amount of years ago. I'm not good with the history timeline. I'm not sure how long ago it was. So I feel like it will be slowly revealed that there is some sort of prophecy at play,
Mhm.
which I think also ties into my whole, like, they're going to be revealed as mates. What the prophecy is, I don't know, but I do think there's a lot of hints to like the dragons hold a lot of knowledge that humans have never had access to, slash, maybe will never have access to. And I feel like humans could not access magic without the dragons. So I feel like they could not access this prophecy without them either. So I think that's how kind of the reveal will happen of there is some sort of prophecy at play.
Mhm. I could definitely see that just because of so many times. Like, I think it's interesting that all of their fates are all tied together somehow. And I think that's really interesting. So I can definitely see like some sort of prophecy. Like you said, I don't know what the hell it would be, but I can definitely see like a prophecy coming
Yeah.
into play. Okay, so my next theory, I think I've kind of talked to you about this before, but I want to talk about Jack really fast, which like fuck Jack. But anyways, I am convinced that he turned venom during that sparring match with Violet in Fourth Wing. So here is the language that comes in Fourth Wing. His sadistic grin and a red rim around his eyes are all I can see as he forces more and more power into my body. Hands reach for both of us, and I hear Riddick and Emetario cry out, jerking their hands away after the contact. And later, in Iron Flame, Violet reflects on it by saying, the way he forced pure energy into me through his hands, rattling my bones. It just makes me really wonder, like, how many other writers have turned venom on the mats, because I think that like that is the biggest time for them to like need power and need to grab power from the source, the main source, which is the ground. And how many people have been like quietly consumed by this hunger for power, which I don't know. I just think it's really interesting that he does turn on the mats, because I'm sure there are so many more people in Desgaiath that are venom at the time that we just like simply don't know about. And it makes me question like who else, and is it somebody else that is in the close-knit group that Violet has?
Ooh, I think that you are right about that. I think in general, like the writers get no warnings about being venom or turning venom. And the first, I mean, we see that like Basgaiath, all 3 years are really dangerous. You're always in danger. So I think it would make sense that in moments when they need power, like the possibility to accidentally pull from the source happens. What I do wonder then is if Jack Barlow turned venom during that sparring match, and that was his like, you know, his moment when he drew from the source, when did he then make contact with the big venom? And when did he learn more about what he had just become? And when did the like Basgaiath staff learn? You know, like timeline wise, I'm just really curious about all of those things.
Yeah, I wonder if it was after Violet brought the mountain down on him, because then that's when Nolan started mending him, or like trying to mend him. And I think they were also not only trying to mend his broken body, obviously, but they were also trying to mend him from being venom. Because also there's that excerpt at the end of Iron Flame where I think it was correspondence between Nolan and General Sorengale, where there's like, after repeated attempts, like there is no cure. Like we cannot find a cure. So
There's
I think
just
that could have
control.
also.
Yeah, that's a good one. My next theory is I think that there is a faction of scribes, like a group of scribes who have been keeping an accurate history. And Violet's dad was part of that group of scribes that was keeping an accurate history. And that group of scribes has the answer to helping get the cure for venom. I don't know where they are. I don't know if they're at Biscayeth or somewhere else. But I feel like with all the little like snippets that we get at the beginning of each chapter, with all of this like history that we keep, like there's so much emphasis on history. I can't imagine that there isn't someone somewhere keeping an accurate history, you know? So I feel like that will be revealed here in this book.
Mm-hmm. I can see that actually, because I think that there are some truths woven into the history, but I do think like obviously a lot of it is fake. So the truths had to have come from somewhere. So I could definitely see that actually. Interesting. Okay, so this next theory that I have also kind of goes in with Venin and Jack. So I think that when a rider turns Venin, they are able to control their dragons, which I think will be really interesting with Violet and Sigale, because in Iron Flame, when Jack is like trying to take power from the world with the word stone, or not the word stone, the ward, what the fuck is it called? I keep saying word stone because we're like really deep into the Throne of Glass world. What is it called? Just the stone.
To be fair to you, it is called a ward stone. It's just one letter difference. W-A-R-D versus W-Y-R-D. So you can just say it however you want, girl, because it's the same thing.
It's basically the same. But anyways, so when he is, and when Bade comes out, Violet notes, Bade, not just any other dragon. Bade's eyes, opaque instead of golden. And then Jack goes on to say, did you see how easily I controlled her? How easily the energy she bonded us with is replaced. And I think that's a really fucking interesting that, like, not only does Violet note that her eyes are different, but I think it's interesting that Jack says, like, how easily the energy she bonded with us is replaced. I don't know exactly what the fuck that means, but I think that I think that's really interesting language there. So, and I think that the reason why Sigale felt such betrayal at the end of Iron Flame is because not only did Xaden turn, but she knows that like this power dynamic could potentially flip. So I don't know. I think that's just something to watch out for.
I like that. Mine kind of goes into some Venin stuff too. So I think that Naolan died reviving Brennan, and Naolan turned Venin reviving Brennan. So that mine falls into that category. I think though that Brennan is being kept alive by the runes in his hands, and that I don't think that we can classify Brennan as human anymore. I think when Naolan revived him and Naolan possibly turned Venin doing so, Brennan became very much similar to how the Wyvern are made. He became something that was made and less of a human and something more that like is basically, I think he was like made the same way that Wyvern are. And I think he's not the only one that's like that. I think there must be other humans out there who the Venin have either revived or done something similar to the process that is used to create Wyvern, which we know nothing about, essentially. We just know that the Venin can create the Wyvern. But I also think that their story, Naolan and Brennan's, is tied into this idea of like love will essentially like conquer all. So I think if Naolan is still alive and Naolan is a Venin, Naolan is not using any of his control over Brennan right now. I don't think that's happening right now. I don't think that Naolan is controlling Brennan in any way, because we know that the Venin can control their Wyvern. If that's the connection that Brennan and Naolan have, then we could say like Naolan is controlling Brennan. I don't think that, because I do think that Naolan and Brennan were in love and are in love in some way. And I think their story arc will mirror what we see with Violet and Xaden in a lot of ways, where one of them is Venin and the other one isn't.
That is actually a really interesting, and I never thought about it that way. But I could like actually see that. Like that could come true. Yeah. Like, damn. Way to break my heart on this Sunday morning.
I have more. There's more. I have some more. Another thing that's kind of tied into my whole thinking around Venin is I think that one of the abilities that you gain when you turn Venin is the ability to dream walk. I think a lot of us like focused a lot on those weird dreams that both Violet and Xaden are having. I think we might, as a fandom, have put too much thought into that. And I think it will easily be explained away as, hey, that's just something you gain when you become Venin. That's my other little Venin side theory.
Okay. I could see that. So then are you saying then that, wait, can you repeat that? Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean by that? Like dream walking?
So like, I can't even remember like I think there are several dreams though in Iron Flame where there is a sage in either Violet's dreams or in Xaden's dreams. And the sages are trying to communicate something specific to both of them. I don't remember what it is exactly because I didn't write down the sections. I've seen theories around like these Venin dreams are actually flashes into the future, and the Venin in Violet's dream is actually Xaden. I've seen things of like, that means that these Venin are in Biscaya. There's a lot of theories around like why these Venin are in their dreams specifically. And I think that that will just easily become explained away by when you turn Venin, you can enter people's dreams. I think you essentially gain like a third power, and that third power is entering people's dreams, maybe even their minds, honestly. But that was mine.
Okay, I see what you mean now.
And then just so I can wrap up all my Venin theories really quickly, I'm going to do my very last Venin one, which I think the cure for Venin is tied into like herbalism, which we see Violet kind of use like in Fourth Wing when she poisons her opponents during the fights. And I think Violet just gives like apothecary vibes. She seems to know a lot about like plants and what they can be used for. So I feel like that will come into play. And I also think that's like such a crack theory because I don't think it will be as simple as that. But I do think if the cure for Venin is somehow tied to herbalism, then the plants that they need are in the Isle Kingdom. Or the plants that they need have not been grown in 650 years, and they'll need to find the seeds, and the dragons are somehow tied into making these plants grow that then you can use to make a little concoction and be like, bye-bye, Venin.
That would make sense too, because when the dragons hatch, their eggshells have power that lasts way after they've hatched. So the ones that are hatching from Indarna's den could be part of that.
I also think, like, based off of that, I also think that it would make sense if the Venin cure is some sort of plant or something that needs to be grown, because what do the Venin do? They drain the land. So they're also, as they're like drawing from the source, they're also killing the land that could be used to grow what would make them go bye-bye. So
that makes sense. And also too, Nolan and them, that thing that they made that stifled their signets was being used, I think, in order to see if that worked, because it could also mean that they used that to stifle like maybe the Venin's connection with their sage.
I don't think this is confirmed, but I feel like it only makes sense that as they were trying to cure Jack Barlow, that's when they created that antidote. And like you said, it was used to control Jack Barlow's connection. There's just been a lot of exploration around like herbalism and using flowers and, you know, using different plants. I just feel like we wouldn't get all of that if it's not going to go somewhere. And then with the whole thing of like the Venin draw from the land, it just makes sense that they're killing the land that would be used to grow things that could kill them, essentially. So
I think that's very interesting. We'll have to keep an eye out for that for Onyx Storm. Okay, this next theory that I have is about the first six. I think that they are all connected to the six most powerful dragon and riders right now, even though I know that like they can't technically, like they're not supposed to bond in familial lines because of the fact that like it can make them go insane or whatever. But I think that as the generations went on at the beginning, they wouldn't have known that if you bonded in the same line that you would have went crazy or you could have got the second signet. So we don't ever learn about any of the first six's last names. We only ever learn about their first names. So it says like Warwick of Lyria or whatever, or Warwick of what Lucy, or I don't know, I don't remember where it says, but it says like Warwick of something. So it doesn't say his last name, and we never learn Lyria's last name either.
God.
So I
didn't know that.
So I think that the first six are connected to like the Ryerson line, the Swearingale line, I think that they're all the same. And I also think that the dragons that they have are in the same lineage as Terran, and like Terran's line is also the same as whoever was the first six of the Swearingale line. But I think it's also interesting because Andarna, I think that the one of the first six that was tied to the Swearingale line also was bonded to two dragons. And the reason why I think this is because Andarna says like multiple times, like she could sense her coming. She knew that something was coming. So it's like, how would she have known there was going to be somebody powerful enough that has the mind of a scribe So I think that's interesting. I think that the first 6 tie closely into the 6 most powerful dragons and riders that we see now.
I'm telling you, it's giving prophecy vibes. It's giving prophecy. That's so interesting. I definitely think that could be the case, especially because I did not realize we don't learn the last names of the first 6. And I think Sorengale is Violet's mom's last name, but I don't think we know her dad's last name. With all of the like hiding of history and erasing of history, lineage records could have also been erased. Yeah, that's so interesting because like when you can't even trust the history that's in front of you, how can you trust the lineage records?
Exactly.
Very interesting. Okay, slay. Mine kind of ties into that. I think that in Onyx Storm, Malik and the other gods will have a much bigger role. I don't think that necessarily is like they'll step in or like they'll pop up or anything like that, but I think their stories will become more relevant to the overall storyline, specifically Malik, because he's so tied into like death. But I don't know what that looks like. I just think that like there's no point in introducing them and bringing them up and telling us like what the death rituals are, which is like, you know, burn everyone's belongings. And then we learn that not everyone does that. Not everyone burns everyone's belongings. So people keep traces of the people that they love. I don't know why we would learn all of that if the gods aren't somehow going to tie in. Maybe that doesn't happen in Onyx Storm, though. That might be like a last minute kind of situation in the 5th book where they sweep in. But I do think we'll learn more about them and their histories because we don't know like how Malik became Malik, how he became the god. We don't learn about like their stories at all around that. So
I really hope that we get like another POV because I think that Violet is a very unreliable first person narrator, I guess you could kind of say, which I think Rebecca's already came out saying like that's not going to happen. But I would love to see like different POVs because I think that like a lot of the information that is being relayed to us is like not the like we're not seeing the full sequence and the full scope. Like I would love like 1 POV or 2 POVs in like the third person and like we get like an overarching bird's eye view of everything that's happened because I just think that things are not being relayed to us accurately also.
Well, and I think like going into that, this is not like a theory of mine, but the whole concept of Violet being an unreliable narrator is even more so like amplified when you realize that Imogen could have erased a lot of Violet's early memories in Fourth Wing. And I feel like that makes her even more unreliable in certain situations. I think after they fell in love and all of that, I think Xaden could have been like, yo, don't do that anymore. But I do think some of Violet's short-term memories at the beginning of Fourth Wing are gone.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with that.
My last one has to do with how I think Onyx Storm will end, which is, I think at the end of Onyx Storm, we will not know where Xaden is. He will have disappeared. I think he will take off because he can't control the stuff going on with him being Venom. And I think he will go somewhere very far away enough that the bond between him and Sigale is like not broken, but like they can't access each other because I think Sigale will stay by Taryn. I think Xaden will go off all on his own. And I think at the end of Onyx Storm, we won't know where he's at. And that will be like the driving factor for the entire 4th book is where is Xaden?
You know what's really interesting? I was just thinking about this as you said that. I wonder how Sigale and Taryn's bond is going to be affected now that Xaden is going to be Venom, because also there's been multiple times where like I can't remember what the one that has the other big dragon, Coda and his mate, they are like really strong. They've been mated for like hundreds of years or whatever. Like, but Taryn and Sigale's mating bond is fairly newer, which is why they can't connect on far distances. So I wonder like as Xaden becomes stronger into like the world of the Venom, like if that mating bond between Sigale and Taryn will snap.
Interesting.
This one is like I have no evidence for this, and like I don't think this will actually realistically happen, but I think this would be like a really cool way to take this series. I don't know. What if Jasenia betrays Violet and Xaden? I know that Xaden said that her intentions were good at first, but what if they start out good and then as time happens, it shifts? So both Fourth Wing and Iron Flame are transcribed from Jasenia's perspective. So what if like we're not even getting the whole truth in general? Like this story is like not actually like happening the way we think it is. And then we get like a book towards the end where it's from the Empyrean's POV and they're like, okay, this is actually what really happened. Like, this is what really happened. So I have no evidence for this. It's just like, I don't know, I'm going based off vibes here, but I think that would be such an interesting twist. Like, we're being deceived by the transcription. And then the Empyrean is like, okay, we're tired of this. Like, we're going to give you our perspective on what happened in the context of like what we know. Because as we were talked about earlier, we know that the Empyrean has a lot of secrets that we don't know about. So I just think that would be interesting.
So how do you picture that happening? Do you picture like the end of this book, we learn that Jesinia is betraying everyone, and then the fourth and fifth book is like transcribed by someone else and also deals with Jessenia's betrayal and everything else that has to be dealt with?
So I don't think that it will happen because so right now Rebecca said there's going to be 5 books, right? So I think that like we're going to get Onyx Storm, and I think we're going to get one more book after that, right? Which will actually, wait, is Onyx Storm the third? Yeah, Onyx Storm's the third book. Then I think we're going to get a 4th book that is, those 4 will all be transcribed by Jesinia. Okay. Then I think the last book is going to be transcribed, and like we're going to think it's all wrapped up nice and neat, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Or it could be we get Onyx Storm, and then the 4th book, like halfway through, like part 2 of the 4th book is like, okay, let's hold the phone because this is not accurate. Like, and then Empyrean like finally steps in and they're like, okay, we're ready to give you our side of the story. Because I think it's interesting that the series is called the Empyrean and we haven't gotten any POVs from the dragons. And like they keep talking about how the Empyrean is this like huge, powerful thing, but like we don't know who the Empyrean are because Terran is not on the like Empyrean board or whatever. I think Coda is maybe, but like we don't know who the other dragons are that are on the Empyrean. And I think that would just be interesting to like get some more info from them. But I think that Jesinia will betray Violet and Xaden at some point.
Wow. That shook me. Okay. This is my final theory about the end of Onyx Storm. I think Dane will die at the end of Onyx Storm, protecting either Xaden or Violet. I think there's a lot of speculation of like Violet loses a protector in every book. First book, Fourth Wing, it was Liam. Iron Flame, it was her mom. And I think that a lot of people, even at the end of Iron Flame, still really, really dislike Dane. And I think rightfully so. I think he still has a lot of room to grow, but I think it would be kind of not like a slap in the face to the fan base, but like a kind of like I told you so situation if he is the one who dies at the end of Onyx Storm protecting Violet or Xaden. Because I think that kind of solidifies like no matter what you've done, you sacrificed yourself for these 2 people who are obviously the key to solving this issue in my head. Like, obviously, we know both of them are the main characters. To me, it's like there's no other option but having the 2 of them be the ones who fix this entire situation. So I think once you're dead, it's like you're immortalized. I mean, Liam is one of the most like beloved characters in the Empyrean series. We disliked General Sorrengail until she came out at the end and basically was like, yeah, I know this is all going on. Also, I made a deal with Xaden to protect you. And also, I'm going to give my life to raise these wards and protect my daughter. I think it would just make a lot of sense if Dane is the one to RIP at the end of Onyx Storm.
I could actually see that, to be honest. Like, I could very well see that. I'm sorry, this is something else I just thought of as you were fucking talking. What if when people don't burn all the things from Malik, they are able to like be hallucinated by somebody, if that makes sense? Because with Violet, we know that she has these like times where she is talking to Liam in Iron Flame, and we know that not all of his things were burned because of the letters that he left. So if Dane does die in the end of Onyx Storm, what if some of his things aren't burned and he was able to read memories of one of the Venin, and that also helps. He's able to communicate that with Violet if they don't burn all the things. You know?
Do you know who else's stuff wasn't burned all the way? Her dad's.
Her dad's,
right.
Her dad's
stuff.
His journals, too, were not burned.
His research were not, it wasn't burned. Yeah.
And that's a wrap on today's special Onyx Storm prep episode. We hope you liked hearing our theories and diving into the chaos with us.
We literally can't wait to get our hands on Onyx Storm, so keep an eye out for our reactions and more Onyx Storm content from us.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok, where our handle is @Bookish Realms Pod.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode, so drop us a comment or send us a message. Also, leave us a rating if you like what you heard. It really helps us out. Don't miss our regularly scheduled programming on Thursdays, where we'll continue our Crown of Midnight deep dives.
Until then, keep reading, assassins.
Bye!